So the cost of living crisis in America has had me secretly planning a way to sidestep this economic prison that we're living in and formulating a plan to escape it. I've watched countless YouTube videos and researching nonstop ways that I could get out of this, and it turns out the plan that I've been working on this whole time actually has a name. It's called geographical arbitrage. And basically, what that means is you take money from a place where it's really easy to get, the US, and spend it in a place where it goes really far, somewhere like Japan, in my case. Now, I've been to Japan a few times, and I just so happen to have a Japanese wife, so I'm very familiar with how far the US dollar goes against the weak Japanese yen. And through planning this stuff, hold on a second, I need to gather my thoughts. I'm just a carpenter, I'm not a YouTuber. A few years ago, I was having lunch on the tailgate with an older gentleman, and I was talking to him, and I said, when I finally make it, then I'm gonna do XYZ when I finally make it. And he looked at me pretty confused and he said, "Make it? What does that mean, make it? What do you mean when you make it?" I'm like, well, when I finally make it, then I can do what I want to do. And he basically asked me what my day would look like in that case, and I couldn't answer him. I didn't have a planned out day. And that was the moment that I realized life is pretty much just like Groundhog Day, only every day is different. And the only days you get are the days you live, which are every day. So if you spend your entire life waiting to the point where you can finally choose what you want to do in them, then you're going to look back and find out that your entire life's pretty much been a waste. And that is exactly the anxiety that I have, which is why I'm planning this geographical arbitrage. And a lot of people on YouTube and other places will tell you that they're escape to Thailand and move to another country, and I want to make it clear that that's not what I'm suggesting here. What I'm suggesting is a little bit more exploitative and less escaping. So what do I mean by that? Well, if you just escape to another country, then you immediately put yourself inside their corral of financial system and living under their own economic prison, which is probably the same everywhere. So, what I'm proposing is that instead of trying to escape to another country, you exploit the dollars in this country and then use them in the other country. And let's just, for sake of a better term, call it a 9-3 split. So 9 months in the other country, 3 months here. What does that actually mean? Let's see how the math is mathing on that. So if you spend 3 months, think of it like people who work on an oil rig. They know it's going to suck. It's miserable, grueling work that's super hard. Only the toughest can handle it. But they pay extremely well. And when they come home, they have 9 months off for the rest of the year. So we want to treat America like it's an oil rig. Work as hard as you can during the months that you're here, and then maximize the amount of months you can spend in the place of your choice. I'm not saying it has to be Japan. It could be any country of your choosing destination where the money goes far. So, but for the sake of this video and my plan, I'm just talking about Japan here. Because of the weak Japanese yen compared to the dollar, this is all going to make sense. So, it's not only economic. It also applies to your entire life. So it's not financial arbitrage. It's an entire lifestyle arbitrage. So instead of eating food in America that's got chemicals in it, that's obviously harming our health, and other things that you can't choose, like how much intangible things that you can't really see or touch, like how you actually feel on a day to day or how mentally stressed you are. You're going to reduce all of these negative things down to just 25% of the year. Now, a lot of people that are online talk about the hustle culture and you got to like work 16 hours a day and never stop, and that's how you get ahead. But the vast majority of people don't have the mental capacity to just do that for their entire lives. People want to just live their life. People have families. People have hobbies or used to have hobbies. And what I do think is that people might have the capacity to do that for 25% of the year. I can probably go all out on my business and make as much money as possible and not have any fun and sleep on a friend's couch for 3 months. As long as in the back of my mind, I know that I'm about to have 9 months of hanging out with my family, playing with my kids, doing Japanese woodcraft that I'm obsessed with, and eating Japanese food that I love to eat, things that I enjoy. I want to spend 75% of the time doing what I want and 25% of the time thugging it out and sucking it up to just get what I need to do done so that I can. A 75% split in favor of doing whatever the heck you want all the time is like a really great deal. I mean, I think there are thousands of people that would just immediately want to sign up for that right away. I'm signing up for that. So, how did I figure out how to do all this? Well, I didn't really figure it out. I've actually realized that I've done it before. I used to play a lot of RPG games when I was a kid, and one thing that I noticed was that if you would play on the PvP server, you could make more gold, and even though it sucked and people would try to kill you, you could make a lot of gold quickly and then just transfer it over at a good ratio to where you actually wanted to play and live like a king. So I'm basically taking that concept from video games and just importing it into real life using the US as a PvP server and Japan as the friendly server where everything is enjoyable for me anyways. And so let's talk about houses and a little bit about what I do. So I'm a carpenter and I build houses. And the fact that I can build a house in about 4 weeks with a couple of fellas makes it extremely difficult for me to want to sign 40 years of my life away and pay every single month on a mortgage for a house that I can build in a few weeks, providing I had owned the land and the material and the time. So the fact that I will have to build hundreds of houses over the course of an entire lifetime to be able to even afford one that I could call my own is a hurdle that I just simply can't get over. I literally refuse to buy a ranch for 500 grand. I'm not doing it. Japan currently has 9 million vacant homes, and they actually keep them in a register, something called an Akia bank. An Akia basically means abandoned home in Japanese, and they have entire registers of where these things are listed, and some of these things are 20, 30 grand. So for the cost of a Toyota truck that I would need for my business to operate here, I could literally buy a house that I own for the rest of my life and have no mortgage on that is actually mine. That is extremely irresistible to me. So, how am I going to execute this plan? Well, first off, it might not be reasonable to think that you could just do a 9-3 split right off the bat, 9 months there, 3 months here. But what you want to do, I think, is start building up your outpost just like it's a video game. So first you need to establish a base camp, which last year I did. I bought a piece of land, rural, not near my wife's family. It's about a 1.5 hour drive, but I bought a piece of land for $3,000. Felt like I couldn't go wrong. I got a little shed there. I keep some tools there. This is base camp 1. Now, I got a lot of pushback from my parents, friends, and family. Like, why would you buy a piece of land in the middle of nowhere in a country that you don't live in? And I think they can't understand that I'm like piecing together the Legos to build for the escape arbitrage plan. So I feel so cool that I know how to say arbitrage now, because this plan felt like just a crazy guy scenario to me until I found out there's a real term for it. So yeah, there's that. Now, I've got the piece of land, but what I really need is an actual livable dwelling. So maybe it's not possible to start out 9 months living in Japan and 3 months here, but it might be possible to start the other way around. 9 months working here, use all that money to get the house secured, and once you have the house secured, you can basically travel there for free, less the plane ticket, and live on those expenses. So every month I'm not living in the US, I'm hemorrhaging less of the US bucks. So if you were to own completely own outright a house and a truck, all you need to do is have enough money income to pay the bills for the year in Japan, which is only a few $1,000s. Now, I understand that if you have a salary job, you work for a company, you might not be able to just go up to your boss and say, hey, I think I'm going to take 9 months off every year for indefinitely. I don't think that's going to go over too well at like an actual structured job. But I don't think these days, when we're living in a post-truth society, and what I mean by post-truth is like everyone basically realizes that they're living in a rigged game and they just don't have any other options but to keep going. So in a post-truth society, I don't think everyone actually even wants to be at those types of jobs anyways. So part of the game plan in order to pull this off would be to, at minimum, have a skill-based income that you can perform during summer months. So like I'm talking your painters, your carpenters like myself, any, landscapers, even like if you were to work as like a farmhand or run some equipment that you would keep, here in the States, and you do some, some digging, whatever it is. I don't know what the other things are. I'm just a carpenter and I'm not a financial guru either. So I really don't have all the answers. I'm just trying to share with you guys my plan and how I think that this exploitative strategy is probably the best way for anyone who is between the ages of 20 and 40 and needs to figure out a way to get the hell out of this before we're all doomed and stuck as wage slaves until we're old, until they finally reclaim us and all of our wealth that we've built through medical and retirement costs. So, one crazy red flag is that my wife would always mention to me about retiring in some random country like Thailand, until one day I'm like, how are we going to even do that? And she said, oh, you guys don't have a retirement visa? I'm like, what the heck is a retirement visa? She says, oh, well, Japan has a retirement visa. You can basically collect your retirement and go live in another country. And I'm like, the US, look it up. The US doesn't have that. How interesting. They don't want you to take your wealth and retire somewhere else. They want you to input everything you've ever earned into your entire life back into the system when you're on your decline. And that is absolutely what I want to avoid. So let's back up. We need to back up. Hold on a second. I need to think about this. Step one, at least have a job, gig type job, skill type job that you can perform for a few months of the year without strings attached. I mean, I know for a fact that if I had to hire, I'm a contractor as well. I build stuff, I build houses. Sometimes I have to hire, painters, plumbers, electricians, a little bit different story. You need a license for that. But I'm like, let's say like a painter or something, or some laborers. It's not unrealistic for me to pay a laborer or a painter or someone to do, odd jobs on a job site, $300 or $400 a day. To put that into context, a skilled Japanese carpenter in Japan would be lucky to make $500 a week. It's not negative. I'm not trying to, look down on that. I'm just saying like that's the reality of what you could make in that occupation. So if you can make $300 or $400 a day in the U.S. and it a full-time job of 10-hour, pretty long Japanese work days are pretty full. 10-hour day, 12-hour day might be normal. If you can make a week's pay in a day, that's like a 7x rate. So to get 52 weeks worth of income, you need to only work 7 weeks. That's how the math's mathing out. So you work 7 weeks and you have the matching income of someone who works 52 weeks in Japan due to the weak yen, due to the weak Japanese yen, and the purchasing power of the US dollar at the moment. I'm not saying the situation is going to last forever either, which is why I'm trying to capitalize on it as soon as possible. So 7 weeks equals 52 weeks. That is a great deal. That is something that I want to sign up for. So at the beginning, the initial setup cost is probably going to be worse than just going about your day-to-day life. There's going to be some sacrifices you have to make. To buy a Japanese house and to actually sit, we're talking that you might need to have 20, 30 grand. So it's not, I realize that's not something everybody just has ready to go. But if you were to think about this and plan this out over a year or two, I say it's feasible. So let's talk about the logistics of all this, right? Because you might be thinking, oh, you have a Japanese wife. It might be easy for you to get a visa. I understand. I understand I'm at a little bit of an advantage that I can get a visa easier than most. But there's actually three good ways you can get a visa in a country like Japan. One, you could get a student visa by just signing up for some community college type college for 6 or 7 grand. $6,000 to $7,000, you could sign up for a college course and get a student visa. And even the $7,000 that you're paying for the college, you're still saving. That's like 2 months' rent in America. Like, you're still saving money exponentially. And as long as you go to the classes, keep your visa. Or you could sign up if you have a field where they might be offering work visas. You sign up with a company and go join up with them. And maybe it's like I'm not educated on other fields, but maybe it's like a little bit of a freelance thing and you can get a visa that way. The third option, they just released digital nomad visas for Japan. So if you're like a YouTuber or something, or you like manage websites or whatever type of, if your work is online, is internet based, you can get a digital nomad visa in Japan and go live there. There are 9 million vacant homes, and you only need one of those to live in. So it's very reasonable. Especially if you're DIY oriented and you can handle doing stuff. Like, even Home Depot's slogan, "You can do it, we can help." America has got us all brainwashed into thinking that we can do everything ourselves, but in actuality, other countries don't think that way. Matter of fact, in Japan, a lot of people would not even want to attempt to do any home repair or any fix-up jobs because they would just kind of feel like they should stay in their own lane of expertise, and they would, it's nothing negative against them. It's just not their cultural style to try to do stuff that's outside their realm. For example, like my wife's a hairdresser, and one time I asked her to cut my beard, and she was like, "But I'm not a beard cut. I'm not a barber. I'm a hairstylist. I don't do beards." And I'm like, "Yeah, but like you're way more qualified to cut a beard than I am. So like, can you just do it? Like, I don't mind how it comes out." And she was like, "I'm so sorry. I wouldn't want to. This is my wife. She didn't want to cut my beard because it's outside of her scope." So that just goes to show you how many people in Japan aren't willing to go down to the home center, grab some wood, fix up some floors, fix up some kitchen cabinets, and spruce up an old place, which is why there's so many available homes in the Akia banks for foreigners to buy. And you don't need to be a citizen, you don't need to be even a permanent resident to buy these homes. Any foreigner can go ahead and go buy an Akia home, a Japanese abandoned home, and you can own it. And maybe in the first year, you only afford just buy the house and then go back home and go back to work, and it just sits there. Even so, like, you've secured it. You've secured the bag. You've secured something where normally you would have to pay the mortgage for the rest of your life here in the US, but now you own it for the rest of your life. So the next time you go, you maybe fix it up a little bit. And instead of totally buying into the US economy by, buying a 2-bedroom house for $700K, maybe you just have a very modest apartment that's as cheap as possible, maybe a little uncomfortable, maybe in a rough neighborhood, and you just deal with it because you only need to deal with it for 3 months. And that's what I want to point out. There's a little bit of sacrifice. You don't get to live like a king here and there too. Like, the only way this works is if you treat America like an oil rig, like a PvP server, and during the time that you're here, you're literally sucking it up and doing the work as hard as you can thing for those 3 months or however many months you need to secure the rest of the years off. But anyways, I'm just moving on to the next thing I want to talk about, which is health arbitrage. So all the unhealthy things that we do in America on a day-to-day basis, if you are stress-free, living in another country of your choice, and enjoying your life, less mental stress, better food without chemicals in it, higher quality connections with the people in your family because you're not just seeing them for 20 minutes at night, eating dinner and going to bed. Your overall health is going to improve, and you're going to be holding that duration of time for 75% of the year. So compounding over the course of your life, 75% of the year being healthy and only 20%, 25% of the year working like grueling hours and roughing it, I think your overall health span would, like, not a doctor, but like, I think you would get like years added onto your life doing this. I think I'm going to get years added onto my life trying this out. So I'm not sure I covered everything, but the reality of this is that it won't happen overnight. And wherever you go, there are pluses and minuses. It's not always greener on the other side, but at this point, I think in this post-truth society that we're living in, where everyone knows this is rigged and there's basically no way we're ever going to be like, this isn't going to turn around. It's not about to just start getting better. I'm pretty sure that it's only going to get worse. And I'm 34. I think people that are younger than me have an even worse chance at getting a house and actually securing a normal life. In that case, like, yeah, I think the grass is greener elsewhere, but only if you still come back here and exploit the dollar while it still stands. I think the escape kind of thing is a little bit of a fantasy. And if you just move to another country, pack everything up, and totally leave, then you'll be just as stuck where you're going as where you're coming from. So, this exploit arbitrage strategy seems to be legit. Now, I don't know if it's going to work for me. It could possibly go bust. But if I have even the chance to spend some time even exploring this idea, trying to buy a house, an Akia home in Japan, fixing it up, playing with my carpentry tools, making videos, spending time with my family, even if I go, the worst case scenario, I'll go bust and come back here and have to work full time on my company again and just keep doing the status quo and suffering like I have been, which I'm already doing. So, worst case scenario is you just end up back here doing the same thing that you were doing in the first place. So, it's almost in a weird view, this is risk free at a chance to build an outpost where you can flee to enjoy your life for a large chunk of time annually. And that's what I want to say in this video. If you guys are feeling like this is possible and you were thinking about it too, let me know. Or if you think that this is possibly illegal and I don't know what I'm talking about and this plan is totally going to backfire, I also probably want to know what you have to say. I'll definitely check the comments on the video and see how you guys react to this plan, because honestly, I haven't really run this plan by anyone. I have been formulating it in secrecy. The only one that knows about this is my wife. So me sharing it with you guys is kind of going out on a limb here. I'm also not really good at making these videos. This is my first long form video. I'm just a carpenter who makes things out of wood. So forgive me if I'm not too great at explaining this or if I was repetitive on some of the points I wanted to hit. But all in all, I think this strategy is very possible, and I'm excited to, at the minimum, give it a shot. And I'm willing to risk at least what I've built up so far to try to make it happen. So I guess in a future video, maybe I will show at my land in maybe I'll show my land in Japan and what I'm building. Yeah, so good luck me, good luck you, I guess, and see you next time. Bye.